The Story of Past Lives is about Nora Moon. Her Korean name is Nayoung. She's married and she reconnects with her childhood sweetheart.
What we get to see is this deep relationship she has from her childhood coming back and challenging some of her views and conceptions about her identity in her present state.
The story is about closure.
Okay. Teo, can you get back?
From the beginning, Celine asked that we not make physical contact, which makes it sound so much more explicit and strange. I think that just is really accounting for like how much actors tend to hug each other, just a chronic hugging. And she said, don't touch.
Haesung!
Until that moment that the audience is experiencing that with us together, I think those kind of reactions were really visceral.
Wow, 너다.
By creating this artifice of like, now you can't do something, makes it more of a thing. So that moment became pressurized.
Wow.
Wow.
All right, and let's roll sound, please. Rolling.
And then you guys weren't allowed to meet.
Early in conversations with Celine, we sort of tossed around this idea of Teo and I not being able to meet until we absolutely had to. And luckily we had a crew and a team that helped facilitate that. And we'd be ushered in through different doors and we'd have Skype meetings where we were both blacked out. And when Nora and Haesung come into the apartment and Arthur meets him for the first time, that's us meeting for the first time on film. 만나서 반가워요.
Hi, nice to meet you, Asa.
I think it works, and also it's just fun to be able to do these little experiments as actors.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially when you're working on 35mm film, where you know you have only like a limited amount of takes, so it kind of heightens
Everything.
the stakes, everything. Everyone was so concentrated and focused.
He was just this kid in my head for such a long time. I think I just missed him a lot.
Did he miss you?
It was a unique situation in that in such a short amount of time, we had to create a marriage that was believable and also a deeply connected childhood first love. And the physicality of that is really specific. The way that I had to be as Nora with Arthur as opposed to Haesung is entirely different. One of the essential ideas of this movie, based on Celine's actual experience, is she could feel like a completely different woman in the presence of each of these men who know and love her so differently and fully and completely.
Well, there's a cultural component of boundary, a Western idea of boundary versus an Eastern idea of boundary. I think it helps draw a stark difference between the two relationships. If you watch Nora and Arthur, they kiss. In most scenes, they're holding hands. And I think for Celine, touch is very meaningful.
What it means to see an Americanized woman confronted with a hologram of her past as a Korean, but now in her adult, fully realized form and what that feels like. We were so excited by this idea of like, oh, I don't think we've seen it in that way before.
보고 싶었어.
나도.
I let myself be inspired by the child actor Seungmin, who when I met him was always so shy and he had his like elbows always like to his upper body, like almost like taped. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's some beautiful piece of body language that I wanna carry with the adult Haesung, because it kind of shows how repressed his emotions are. Tony Leung, in Asia, he's known for the man who speaks with his eyes. In like moments where we are vulnerable together, but don't have any dialogue, how deep can I go showing that inner life only through the eyes, which are the only parts of the nervous system that are openly exposed to the real world, and thereby have a window to your brain and your heart and your emotion.
We were looking at the Marina Abramovic Ule
All
encounter,
right.
which involves Marina Abramovic. She's sitting at a table and a willing participant comes and joins her at this table, and they have this wordless exchange just with their eyes. That was one of the pieces of source material that we could all agree upon, just to make sure that we were all living in the same world of what we wanted for that first encounter, that wordless exchange after so
Right, I
many
remember,
years.
yeah. 너를 진짜 사랑하는 것 같아.
The bar scene was crucial. We took 2 days to shoot one scene, and arguably the movie lives and dies on the success of the bar scene. The genesis of that scene was a real life experience where Celine found herself flanked by 2 men, one her husband and the other her childhood sweetheart. And the uncanny and mysterious and profound experience of sitting in the threshold between 2 men who could know her so completely but in totally different ways. So we really took our time in terms of making sure we could honor what that experience is like.
만약에 네가 한국을 떠나지 않았다면 내가 널 찾았을까?
We had jokes that, this is a love story, but we're subverting the genre and it almost becomes sci-fi. That Haesung could present to her as some sort of hologram of a different time, a different life, that she's jumping back from the present to the past to an imagined future, depending on which way she was facing. Yeah? Sounds like, that was something that we were aiming for from the beginning, like how to extrapolate and make monumental what you can argue is kind of a simple scene.
I remember for me wanting these escape routes. I kept suggesting maybe I go get a drink. Maybe I excuse myself to go to the restroom. I kept trying to leave because it was so awkward, but Celine insisted I stay there in the uncomfortable awkwardness of the scene. And like Greta said, after 2 days of filming, finally we get to a point where Haesung and Arthur are sat alone and kind of have their man-to-man talk, if you will. And I think that build-up led for a tremendous energy and a very dynamic scene. Do you want to say anything?
No, I have nothing to add to that. So,
Hope you enjoyed your behind the scenes look. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you here next time. Later.